Hello, and welcome along to the next in this series of videos on setting up and configuring the Chocolatey Quick Deployment Environment, QDE. So far in this videos, we have set about taking the base image file, loading it into the hypervisor that I'm using here. So I'm using VMware Fusion. We have installed the Chocolatey license and set up a Chocolatey license package. We have set up and configured Chocolatey Central Management. So at the minute, we have the server, the Choco server itself, checking into CCM. We've also had a look at our Nexus repository setup. So we've had a look at what packages we've got available within our local Nexus repository, as well as looking at things like the raw Nexus repository, which is where our client installation scripts are coming from. We've also had a quick look at Jenkins and the setup for Jenkins. We haven't actually done anything with Jenkins yet, but that will be in a future video. So where we got to is some other considerations that we need to look at so that we can move forward with the next part, which is the client installation of additional machines reporting into CCM. So the first thing that we need to look at is that these are the ports that are required by CCM. I'll just make this screen a little bit bigger so that we can see that. So by default, there are 4 ports that need to be set up and made available to external connections. So if I look in here, we'll see that that's already been done. So all the ports required for CCM, for Nexus, and for Jenkins are already set up. The other part that we need to consider is that by default, the installation of QDE that I'm running here is running all self-signed certificates. If for some reason you wanted to regenerate those, we have a script in the Choco setup folder that will regenerate those if you need to. And it'll also allow you to potentially provide your own certificate to do as part of that installation. I'm not going to do that, but if you need that help with that, you can definitely reach out to support if you run into any problems. The part that I am interested in is performing a client installation. So what I've got over here is I've got another machine. So this machine, as you can see, doesn't currently have Chocolatey installed on it. But what I need to be able to do is I want to be able to run this script, this client setup.ps1 file, and that is located within my Nexus repository's raw repository. Okay, so I want to be able to run that. Now, there's a little bit of a chicken and an egg problem here because this machine that I have here doesn't trust the self-signed certificate that Nexus is running under. So I need to be able to get that certificate from the Nexus, from essentially the Chocolatey server, and I need to be able to import it into my local system here so that I can trust it going forward. Now, there are ways that we can do that, but we have a script that can help with that. So if we look at this script that we're being told to run here, it's actually first downloading a script from chocolatey.org. So if I grab that and I create a new tab, we can see that there's a quick deploy, import quick deploy certificate.ps1 file. Now, obviously, this is a script that comes from the internet. It is coming from chocolatey.org and it is signed. So we like to think that it is secure, but obviously, we encourage you to read through the script before you actually run it on your own environment. But essentially what this is going to do is it's going to look at the QDE environment, it's going to grab its certificate, whether it's a self-signed one or whether it's not, and it's going to pull it into my client machine so that I can then run the client install.ps1 file as part of that. So I'm going to grab this, I'm going to grab all of it, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go to my client machine. Let's just clear the screen here. And I'm going to let this run. So the first thing it does, it reached out to chocolatey.org to download that import quick deployment certificate. It's imported that into my environment, and then it started running the client setup.ps1 file. So what it does is it reaches out to our Nexus repository. It's not going to go out to the internet. It's going out to grab the packages that need to be installed on this machine to get everything working the way I want it to. So currently it's installing Chocolatey GUI. So Chocolatey GUI is going to come into play when we start looking at self-service background installations. We're not going to cover that in this video, that'll be a future video. It's installing the Chocolatey extension, and it's installing the Chocolatey license package that we put onto our Nexus repository. So at the end of this script, we're going to have a fully licensed, fully installed system that's ready to check into CCM. So the final thing that it's doing there, it's installing Chocolatey Agent. It's Chocolatey Agent that it's going to do the communication to the CCM, and it's going to report in the local packages that I have installed on this machine, and also whether or not any of those are outdated. And once that's done, it's going to run a couple of Chocolatey config commands and Chocolatey feature commands to enable and disable different configurations. Again, just to get those best practice setup already on the machine. Now, obviously, if you needed to, you can tweak the client setup scripts that are in that Nexus repository. But what we give you out of the box is what we recommend. So now if I run Chocolatey here, I've got Chocolatey installed now, and I've also got the business version. Okay, so if I run a Choco list local only, I can see what packages that script installed. So it's installed Chocolatey, Chocolatey Agent, extension, Chocolatey GUI, and the dependencies for Chocolatey GUI. And now, if everything's gone the way I wanted it to, if I go back over to Chocolatey Central Management here, and I do a refresh, I've now got 2 machines rather than 1. And if I look at the computers, I've now got the Choco server, and I've got this machine that was called Live Streams. That was actually a machine that I use for some other things that I do on my Twitch channel. But this is a machine that I have now got reporting into CCM. So if I click on Live Streams here, I can get a list of all the packages that are installed, and then any packages that are outdated. So with this one single script, I can then enroll other machines into CCM. So you can see how easy that was. All of that didn't require any reach out to the internet except that initial setup. Now, this is just one way of doing this. In order to trust that certificate across your environment, there are other ways of doing it. This is just one way of doing it. And if you are using your own certificate, it may already be trusted on your client machines. This is just what's required for the QDE environment out of the box. So with that done, we're good to go. There's one caveat with regard to licensing of the VM. So the VM that we have here, if I go back to the desktop, it is a full installation of Windows Server on this machine, but it hasn't been licensed. So what you will need to do is you will need to provide a license key in order to make this a valid installation of Windows Server. So there's some information here about how you can do that. So I'm not going to do that on this video because I'm going to basically throw this VM away at the end of this series of videos, but this is something that you will need to do as part of your installation. Okay, with that done, I'll come back to the next video, which will look at running some of those Jenkins jobs and figure out how we can find out if there are any outdated packages and pull them down into our environment ready for consumption within our environment. But thank you very much.